If you're suffering from a disc bulge that's giving you back pain and sciatica, the good news is there are usually ways you can speed up healing from this problem. Hi everyone, my name is Harlow and I'm the Over-Fifties Specialist Physio here at HT Physio in Farnham. And today I'm going to be giving you 8 ways that you can speed up your recovery from a disc bulge problem. Now, disc bulges, sciatica, back pain, these are problems that I see all the time in the clinic. It's one of the areas that I specialise in. I've done a lot of extra research, work and study in the area of sciatica and disc bulges. And it's a really common problem. We probably see people about 4 times a day, 3 or 4 times a day with this issue. And the bad news is it can be one of the most painful conditions that we treat here. Now, what I'm talking about when I talk about a disc bulge is something to do with the spine. And here we have a cross section of the 2 lowest vertebrae in the spine. So we've got the 2 white things, which are the bones. We've got the disc in the middle. You can see the joints at the back where the 2 vertebrae join. And in the middle, we've got the spinal cord. And these are what we call nerve roots. Now, a disc bulge looks something like that. Okay, so we have a bulge where we get a weakness of the disc. The fluid center starts to push towards the back of the disc in certain positions. And if we're not careful, it can press on a nerve root, which looks kind of like that. So you can see there that the nerve root is being pressed on. Now, disc bulges are really common. Not everyone's disc bulge will press on a nerve root, but when it does press on a nerve root, we get lots of symptoms like pain all the way down the leg, which we call sciatica. That pain can follow different patterns. We also tend to get a seizing up of the lower back muscles, so we get back pain as well. We can get pins and needles, we can get numbness, we can get weakness in the legs in more severe circumstances, and a whole host of other symptoms as well. All in all, it's a very unpleasant problem, but the good news is 95% of people with this problem can get it better without surgery. So in today's video, now we know what a disc bulge is, we're going to talk about 8 ways that you can speed up healing from a disc bulge. So if you're suffering from a disc bulge or disc herniation, you can get better quicker. Now, the first thing you need to do to speed up recovering from a disc bulge is to avoid any movements or positions that aggravate the problem. Now, one of the common mistakes that we find people make when they're suffering from a disc problem is that they think it's like other injuries where it's a bit of no pain, no gain. So, just push through the pain or do the things you normally do and just grit your teeth and bear it. Now, if you've got a disc bulge, this is the worst thing you can do. And the reason it's such a bad thing is because a lot of the pain associated with this problem is due to something called inflammation. Now, inflammation is where we get a load of angry chemicals which surround the disc bulge and almost attack the nerve, and that causes the pain in the leg, which is why some people with severe sciatica can have pain no matter what position they're in. It's because the inflammation is still around the nerve root. Now, if we keep doing things to aggravate it, what we're doing is we're making the inflammation in that area worse. And if we're doing that, we're delaying recovery from the problem. So as a golden rule of exercises, positions, movements, anything you do when you've got a disc bulge, it should be as close to pain-free as possible. And this is the most important factor to getting a disc bulge better as fast as possible. Now, the second thing you can do to speed up recovering from a disc bulge is to take a rolled up towel and to put it behind your lower back when you're sitting. Now, when I say a rolled up towel, the type of thing I'm thinking about is this. So all you need to do is get a normal shaped towel, normal size towel I should say, and roll it up into a cylinder. And when you're sitting, you put it at your lower back here. Now, what this does is something very important. It does something called exaggerates the lordosis of the spine. And the lordosis is the natural C-shaped curve that we have in the lower part of our spine. Now, when we have a normal lordosis, so when we have a normal C shape, that has been shown through MRI studies to be more likely to push the disc back into the position it was designed to be in. When we reverse the lordosis by sitting in a slump position or bending forward, or do anything that takes us out of that natural C shape into a reverse C shape, we are making the disc bulge worse. And sitting is a big risk factor for making the disc bulges worse. So if you do lots of sitting, the best thing you can do is to make sure you have that C shape in the spine maintained. So when you're sitting, you should have something here just to push the spine forward. A rolled up towel does the job perfectly, and it will help that disc to move back to where it should be. Now, the third thing you should do to speed up recovery from a disc bulge, and this is not just generic advice, but it's to stay hydrated. You might be thinking, well, surely stay hydrated, that's just good advice for anything, so it's pretty non-specific. But with disc bulges, this is actually very relevant advice. Now, the discs themselves, the spinal discs, are made up of about 90 to 95% water. This is quite a good model. It shows how flexible the disc is. So we have a tough load of outer fibers. They are pretty well hydrated, but in the middle, we have almost pure liquid. So the discs are very heavily hydrated when the body is hydrated as well. Now, the problem is, if we become dehydrated, the body senses that it needs to take water to help the running of the cells in other areas of the body. So what does it do? It tries to draw in water from the non-essential areas. One of these areas is the discs. So if you are dehydrated, your body will try and suck water away from the discs, okay, to feed other areas of our anatomy, more crucial to our survival, and that will leave us with thinner discs that are a bit more compressed because they don't have the water weight to hold them up. Now, this causes a couple of different problems. One of the problems is it can make inflammation worse, and the other problem is that it closes down the spaces where the nerves run through in the spine. So if your nerve is irritated and it's giving you sciatica, that will get worse when you are dehydrated. So one of the most important things you can do when you have sciatica and a disc bulge is to make sure you're drinking plenty of fluids, probably 200 to 500 mils per day more than you normally do, just to keep on top of your hydration. Now, the fourth thing you should do to speed up recovery from a disc bulge is when you feel able, you should start gentle, pain-free, active range of motion movements. Now, what do I mean by this? Basically, what I mean is any movement of your lumbar spine, of your lower back, that doesn't cause you pain is likely to be helpful in your healing, okay? So use pain as your guide. And the reason we want to move the spine in a comfortable way so as not to cause pain is A, so we don't make the inflammation worse. Okay, if it's comfortable, it's probably not making inflammation worse. And B, we're trying to bring blood flow to the disc to help it heal. Now, your blood flow is the life force of the body. It's what knits things back together when we have an injury. If we didn't have blood flow to an area, it just wouldn't heal. And the discs don't have a very good blood supply. So we need to try and bring blood flow to the disc. And the only way we can really do that is through movement. Most people, when they have sciatica, they'll have a few movements that cause them more pain, and they'll have a few movements that cause them less pain. The movements that cause them less pain are the ones that should be done. So these are the ones you should work on to slowly restore the mobility of your spine. Now, the fifth thing you should do to speed up recovery from a disc bulge is to do as much walking as you feel able. Now, walking has been shown to be one of the best exercises for recovery from back pain and sciatica, and a disc bulge is no different. Now, it might initially be quite painful to walk, but it doesn't mean you should stop altogether. What you should do is you should split up the walking into very short durations of time that you can just about manage before the pain starts, and when it starts, you should try and stop. Even if that means you're just doing a 2-minute walk around the house and then stopping. That is so much better than doing nothing. If you find that you feel better when you walk, then you should try and maximize that. So do as much walking as possible within reason. If you find that you walk and it feels fine, then you stop and the pain feels worse, it means you've done too much. So there will be a trial and error process when you're trying to find out how far you should walk. So first of all, start off by walking a sensible distance, somewhere between 5 and 30 minutes, depending on how much pain you're in. Stop before you reach pain, then take note of how you feel over the next 24 hours. If you feel fine, that distance was absolutely okay for you, so you can either repeat it or you can do more. If you felt worse afterwards, you've done too much. So you need to wind it back 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on where you started, and just start from a really low level and build up. Overall, walking is great because it improves blood flow to the disc, it improves movement of the spine, and it helps with the healing process of the disc as well. Now, the sixth thing you can do to improve recovery from a disc bulge is to be careful about your sleeping position. Now, if you are a back sleeper, then one of the best things you can do is to take pressure off the nerve in the leg by putting a towel or a pillow underneath your knees. So we want to be lying flat with a kink in the knees. Okay, so we've got the towel just underneath the knees so they're slightly bent. What this does is it takes pressure off the sciatic nerve and helps with healing. Now, if you sleep on your side, which probably most people do, what we tend to find is people who sleep on their side have a leg that falls over the top of the other one or falls behind the other one. And either of these circumstances leads to the pelvis being twisted, which is not ideal for 8 hours each night when you've got sciatica. So instead, what you need to do is put a pillow between your knees. This keeps the knees apart, which puts the pelvis in the right position and stops it from rotating left or right, forward or back. And this can really speed up healing. Now, usually as well, if you are a front sleeper, we would say for most issues, this is not a good thing. But if you have a disc bulge, sometimes front sleeping can actually be helpful. So don't try and not sleep on your front. If you find it comfortable at the moment, then that is the place you should be. Obviously, it'd be something to try and wean yourself off of afterwards because it can cause other problems. But front sleepers can sometimes be okay with sciatica as well. Now, the seventh thing you can do to speed up recovery from a disc bulge, and this is a super important one, is to avoid stretching the hamstrings. Now, the hamstrings are the muscles we have at the back of our thigh. I'll show you them. They're just here. So they're at the back of the thigh between the buttock and the knee. Okay, and they are called hamstrings because they kind of feel like strings when you contract them because they've got nice long tendons. Now, when people have sciatica, they often have pain at the back of the leg, and it can sometimes feel like it's the hamstrings that are sore. Now, the reality is it's not the hamstrings at all. It's the nerve underneath the hamstrings. But because it feels like the hamstrings, some people try and stretch the hamstrings to relieve the pain. Now, this is a big mistake, and it can make sciatica 10 times worse. It can even stop you from getting better. Hamstring stretches involve things like lying on your back and lifting your leg up, or sitting on the floor with your leg out in front and reaching for your toes. All of these things stretch the hamstrings, but they also stretch the sciatic nerve. And if you've got a disc bulge and the nerve is being irritated, it will not like to be stretched. It will make the problem much, much worse. So, the goal here is to not stretch the hamstrings at all, even if they feel like they need to be stretched. Now, the eighth and the final thing you can do to improve the healing from a disc bulge, instead of stretching the hamstrings, is you can stretch the other muscles in the legs, but sometimes it works best to actually stretch the muscles in the legs on the opposite side. So let's say you've got pain in your right leg, you've got sciatica in here, you've got a right-sided disc bulge. Now, some people find that even if they're not stretching the hamstrings, stretching any muscle in this right leg is going to make their pain feel worse. Now, for those people, one thing that I found to be super beneficial is to stop stretching the right side altogether and move all of your stretches over to the left side. That means stretching the buttock, it means stretching the calf, it means stretching the quads. I probably would still avoid stretching the hamstring on the left side just because of the position it puts the spine in. But if you're doing stretches on the right leg and that's the painful leg, it's not making it better, try having a break from there and stretching the left side instead. This can work wonders. I have another video on this, which I will leave a comment to in the show notes. And it can show you one of the best ways that you can use this kind of stretching approach to improve healing from a disc bulge. Anyway, so those are all of the things you can do to speed up healing from a disc bulge. I'm just going to run through them one more time. So number one is to avoid anything that's aggravating the problem. Number two is to use a rolled up towel behind your back when sitting. Number three is to make sure you're staying hydrated. Number four is to incorporate gentle, pain-free movement of your lower back. Number five is to make sure that you're doing as much walking as you can. Number six is to make sure that you're putting yourself into a good sleeping position using the right pillows. Number seven is to avoid hamstring stretches. And number eight is to do your stretches on the opposite leg to the pain. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, you can get more from me by picking up a copy of my book. It's called Thriving Beyond 50 and you can find it using the link below this video. If you've enjoyed today, please do subscribe to the channel and like this video because it helps me reach more people. But that's all I've got. I hope you've enjoyed it and I look forward to speaking to you on the next one.